Nintendo's latest platform expertly blends handheld play with the experience of a home console. After only just over 2 years on the market, the Switch has already seen its fair share of modern classics. My name, as always, is not important. What is important, I hear you ask? Well... Number 10. Steamworld Heist. I admit I never actually heard of this one before researching this list. Steamworld Heist is the third game in the Steamworld series, and this latest title has been published on a whole bunch of platforms since its original launch on 3DS in 2015. It's described as a steampunk-themed side-scrolling strategy game, and the Switch version is generally the most highly regarded of all the releases, currently standing at 91 on Metacritic versus 81 to 90 on other platforms. I can't help but be worried that the 10th best Switch game is a bit of a cast-off from previous platforms, however. Number 9. Sonic Mania Plus. Poor Sonic. First, his parent company ran out of good ideas for games for him, then he got sold to his old rivals, and most recently he's been horribly rendered for a live-action movie that just... It just won't be good. Can we all agree on that? It doesn't matter if he looks amazing, the film's just is going to be bad. Anyway, it turned out that what Sonic really needed to get his mojo back was the tender loving care afforded by the fan community. Former modders and fan game makers Christian Whitehead, Headcanon and Pagoda West originally developed the game very much in the style of the Mega Drive/Genesis originals, using tools originally made for porting the classic games to modern hardware. This Switch version, finally realising my dream of a 21st century Game Gear, was ported with the assistance of Tantalus Media. Critics described Sonic Mania as the purest and most enjoyable of recent Sonic games, and compared it favourably to classics like Donkey Kong Country. Sonic Mania Plus improves the multiplayer aspects and includes additional content, and currently stands at 91 on Metacritic. Number 8. Inside. Inside is my favourite song by 90s grunge band Stiltskin. It's also a stylish, atmospheric, side-scrolling puzzle platform game from the team behind Limbo. As with Limbo, the game keeps its aesthetic simple, with design focused on shape, animation and lighting rather than texture and colour. However, Inside goes way beyond its predecessor in its variety and scope. Its puzzles are often more complex than in its predecessor, but also more forgiving and less repetitive. And unlike Stiltskin, it's not a half-hearted Nirvana knockoff. Games that are categorised as artsy frequently do well with reviewers and less well at retail, and I still find it troubling that the best game reviewers can find on the Switch are ports of games from other systems. Nevertheless, it scored very well with those who've reviewed it, with the Switch port scoring 91 on Metacritic. Number 7. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Yep, it's another port, this time an upgrade from the Wii U release of Mario Kart 8, with tons of additional content in the form of tracks and drivers, as well as the improved visuals made possible by the jump in hardware power. If you've heard of Mario Kart, there won't be much to surprise you here. You drive, you boost, you shoot shells, you get frustrated when someone uses a cheap power-up to win on the last turn. This, however, is generally agreed to be the quintessential version of the Mario Kart experience. Reviewer feedback was particularly good for the battle mode, described as the best since the SNES days, though some reviewers feel the deluxe version doesn't bring enough to the table over the previous edition. Current Metacritic rating, 92. Number 6. Bayonetta 2. Oh man. Okay, yes, I understand the Wii U was a commercial disaster, so it's a great thing that the forgotten classics from that system are being revived for the much more popular Switch platform. But still, I'm disappointed. Bayonetta 2 is the 2018 Switch port of the 2012 sequel to the 2009 multi-platform original, now a Nintendo exclusive. Bayonetta 2 is weird. The player takes control of the titular witch, dressed in clothes made from her living prehensile hair, as she engages in melee combat and gunplay with angels and demons. Sort of a slightly bondage-themed Devil May Cry, if you like. This hasn't stopped the game from aggregating a score of 92 on Metacritic, with reviewers calling it one of the best action games of all time. Number 5. Celeste. It's easy to look at Celeste's art style and write it off as another indie pixel art platformer, and in fairness it's exactly that. A modern game with an ancient aesthetic. Also, if that puts you off, I'm sure it won't interest you anymore to find out that the game is an allegory for overcoming depression, written by people who clearly understand and care deeply about the subject. Whether or not you have an aversion to anything that could be labelled as deep or artsy in your video games, Celeste's heavier story elements can be skipped altogether, leaving you with gameplay that is best described as easy to pick up, hard to master. It is a precise, skill-oriented platformer, like a more methodical Super Meat Boy. Controls are extremely pared down, and successfully navigating a level involves careful use of jumps, dashes and climbs. There's plenty of opportunity for exploration as levels are filled with hidden areas, collectibles and alternate versions. Celeste on Switch currently holds a rating of 92 on Metacritic. Number 4. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. While most media outlets are content to metaphorically weaponise nostalgia and fandom, Nintendo have done it literally with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Ever wanted to see young Link pummeling Ryu from Street Fighter? No? Okay. How about the Dog and Duck from Duck Hunt squaring off against a Wii Fit trainer? Eesh, tough crowd. Okay, so the cast of fighters looks a bit esoteric if you're not elbow deep in Nintendo fandom, but the gameplay and sheer variety of options in SSBU has made reviewers herald it as one of the best fighting games of all time, and has helped it score a mighty 93 on Metacritic. Number 3. Undertale. Critically acclaimed indie adventure Undertale was the brainchild of one-man band Toby Fox, who wrote, designed and scored the game himself, with only some additional artwork supplied by other artists. Undertale is a top-down RPG in the style of classic games like Chrono Trigger, with a combat system inspired by bullet hell games. Like many critically acclaimed games in top 10 lists, Undertale's story depends greatly on moral choices made by the player. It's not always necessary to engage in combat with opponents, and someone who chooses to fight every time the option comes up will have a very different story experience to someone who chooses the pacifist route. Undertale continues to be a darling of reviewers, with the Switch port earning 93 on Metacritic. And once again, the top spot is a tie. Given that these two titles are the main reasons anyone owns a Switch in the first place, this should be no great surprise. So, in what I guess is a fairly arbitrary order. Number 2. Super Mario Odyssey. Plumber Boy is back in this, his 743rd outing, not really, for Nintendo that once again redefines the platform genre. Critics love its breadth of gameplay styles, gorgeous visuals, catchy soundtrack, now with lyrics, and nods to Nintendo history. This time Mario is joined by Cappy the Sentient Cap. And Gladys the Groovy Mule too, I expect. Who gives Mario the ability to possess objects and creatures throughout the game, and temporarily gain their abilities. Also giving us such indelible images as Mario T-Rex and Bullet Mario. Nah, who am I kidding? Audiences and critics by now are completely bought into the low-key ridiculousness of the Marioverse, to the point now that pointing it out just makes me seem like a grouch. Everybody loves Mario, and this is shown in the frankly incredible 97 it scored on Metacritic. Number 1, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Yep, major shock here. The big launch title of the Switch is also one of the most well-regarded games of any platform, with people buying Switches just for this one game. 2017's Breath of the Wild is an epic third-person fantasy RPG set in the stunningly rendered open world of Hyrule. Our boy Link has woken up from a 100-year sleep and pulled on some new threads that aren't green, and is going to throw down with Calamity Ganon and save the kingdom. Other fan-bewildering changes to the formula include the addition of voice acting and a motorcycle mount for some reason. Despite these obvious obscenities, reviewers have showered the latest full Zelda game with praise, particularly over its visual style, open world gameplay and attention to detail. Only the hardest of hearts rated Breath of the Wild lower than 9 out of 10, and that's resulted in the latest Zelda sharing the top spot on Switch with Mario at 97%. And that's my list. How many of them do you own? Did the appearance of any entry shock you to your very foundations? Have you got a Switch yet? If not, why not? Were you waiting for the Switch Lite? Check out my videos on the best-selling games on other platforms, and while you're down there, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.